All right. Hello.
Hello.
I don't have a mic, so I'm going to speak loud. If you can't hear me, just let me know, and I'll talk louder. But thank you, everyone, for coming to the Internet Society New York Chapter Digital Privacy Meetup. I want to thank our sponsors, Civic Hall, for allowing us to use this space. Civic Hall is an incredible workspace for those focused on anything civic tech. It's where social entrepreneurs, change makers, government employees, hackers, academics, journalists, and artists can share knowledge, build tools, and solve problems together. I'm a member here myself. The connections I've made here are invaluable. The community and the staff is fantastic. If you're working in civic tech, you should be working here. And I want to thank Eleni and Joe and Veronica, but they're not in the room, but thank you. I also want to thank Silent Pocket. All of you should have gotten these cool little RFID things for your credit cards. They donated that. They're really, they're a great company. They're dedicated to giving control back to the consumer. Silent Pocket is a proprietary wireless shielding technology that is embedded into sleek products such as wallets, cell phone cases, and tablet sleeves. They are creating the best Faraday cages on the market that provide instant privacy and peace of mind for all your devices. And someone here is going to one lucky winner is going to walk away with a phone RFID case, which is really cool. And finally, I want to thank ISOC, the Internet Society, and Mark Buell, our regional director for North America, who came from Canada to the event and sponsored this as well. Our vision at ISOC is that the internet is for everyone. Our mission is to promote the open development, evolution, and use of the internet for the benefit of all people throughout the world. My name is Shuli Halleck, for those of you that don't know me. I've been working on visualizing the internet since 2013, and I'm the new executive vice president of ISOC New York. What I care about, well, let me tell you more about ISOC first and how we work. We operate at the intersection of policy, technology, and development, and allowing the Internet Society to be a thought leader on issues key to the Internet's continued growth and evolution. We have over 50,000 members, 90 chapters worldwide, 17 countries with offices, and 5 regional bureaus. You guys should join the Internet Society. It's a great organization, and we'll be doing a lot more things like this here in New York. The hashtag, if you want to tweet or anything like that, is digital privacy. ISOC New York, me, Silent Pocket, our sponsor, Ghostery, and Todd Ruback, who's going to be our speaker. I'll present him in a bit. So what I care about personally and professionally is ensuring that we create the future that we want, one that protects individual rights, creates an equal society by removing gatekeepers and decentralizing power. We're at a critical crossroads right now. The internet is a powerful tool that has and continues to transform our world and society. We all depend on it. It has flattened knowledge and distributed power structures, empowering individuals to express themselves and bypass traditional gatekeepers. The key to the internet is information, or data. Data is the new gold. Its value is incapable of being measured because of all the ways that it can be collected and harnessed. And like any tool, including the internet, data is neither good or bad. It's the application of that data that determines its trajectory. We're in a space that's unregulated, and power and data is up for grabs. We willingly give it away in exchange for services. We have no laws yet governing how this data can be used, and we really don't even know who owns the data. There's so much good that can come from these technologies and applications, not just things that make our lives easier, not just personal assistants and self-driving cars and connected devices, but also a lot of applications that are critical to health and wellness of the more vulnerable population, like doorbells for the deaf and hard of hearing, or wristbands for children that can monitor if they're in water so that their parents can prevent them from drowning, and so on and so on. The list goes on. But new opportunities also create new challenges, and the challenge we need to address is how that data is being used, like government and corporate surveillance and targeted advertising, as we'll hear more about in just a bit. The concerning thing about any agency, private or government, having this much data and power is that it can be used for behavioral manipulation. We've seen this concern with Facebook news feeds and Google search results, from nudging what we buy to pushing certain districts and populations to vote. And I also just heard today that Amazon Echo might be subject to FBI wiretapping. There are over 3 million of these devices all over the world just listening at your home, in your living room, to your conversations, your intimate life, fights, and your most personal selves. Our phones also record things that we're not aware of as well. They can be flipped into hot mics. So the general rule that I use is that if it's connected, it's collecting. We're heading towards a surveillance state, and that never goes in a good direction. It has never led to a freer society or a stronger democracy. In fact, a surveillance state and a democracy are mutually exclusive. So what do we do besides wearing tinfoil hats and running? Change needs to happen from the ground up. We are the ones that need to lead the movement. We can start to change our mindset and expect to pay for secure services that protect our privacy rather than bartered away in exchange for free services. We can create a new business model that is centered around privacy and security rather than data exploitation. And actually, we're going to be putting together a conference in the fall, a much bigger version of this called the Digital Privacy Summit in partnership with Civic Hall, focused on startups and helping them sort of understand a new way to build products. This is the time for startups to build and offer these services to win back user trust. If we don't protect our individual right to privacy, we essentially give up our democracy. The way forward is for all of us to be informed, educated, and aware. We need to know how the internet works, how our data is used, collected, sold, and analyzed, how law enforcement, government agencies, and corporations track our movements, because we value our democracy and want to protect it. So at the end, I'll be doing some demos on VPNs. We should be using VPNs, RFID blockers, such as the ones that Silent Pocket has given us, a Tor browser. In general, just be aware that anything you do with any connected device is not private. And we should be using services like Ghostery, which offers a browser extension to help us see and control how we are being tracked online. So on that note, I'm going to introduce Todd Ruback. He's the Chief Privacy Officer and Vice President of Legal Affairs at Ghostery, a New York City-based technology company that helps consumers and businesses have a cleaner, better, and safer digital experience through its suite of privacy and data products. As Ghostery's first CPO, he oversees the company's global privacy program and ensures that its products and services incorporate privacy by design into their architecture. Prior to Ghostery, he chaired the privacy and technology practice at DeFrancesco Bateman in New Jersey. Hopefully I'm saying that right. And he was the founder and chairman of the New Jersey State Bar Association's Privacy Committee. He is active in the IAPP and presently holds a bunch of certifications that I'm not going to pronounce. But all that is to say is that we are thrilled to have him, and I'm really looking forward to his presentation. So please give a round of applause for Todd. No problem. I'm just going to pass over this mic to you. I guess
How
clip
should
it
I
on
do
your
it? Just
shirt.
clip it anywhere?
Yeah.
My eyes are so bad. Just like that. Like that?
That should be good. Get you the slide up. Why is this
Put in, click slideshow up top, and it should go to full screen. Oops. There we go.
all right?
That's the only thing I know about PowerPoint.
Uh-oh.
There we go.
Oh.
Yeah, because it's showing.
Okay, you're good.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
Hi, everyone. Oops, sorry.
Now it's all yours.
Thanks. Hi. Can you hear me okay? So, does anyone watch Mr. Robot? Yes. Right? Okay, so last night was the beginning of season 2. And I feel like I'm in an episode of Mr. Robot. But I mean it in a really good way. Because everything that you mentioned, Shuli, really resonates with me about your mission statement about having a open society that's available, an open internet that's available to everyone. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. But first of all, I want to say thank you for allowing us to speak. When we were contacted by you, we were excited. I was so excited I brought my colleague, Kate Anderson, who was sitting in the back. So also, because I wasn't sure if this was going to be a friendly crowd or throw tomatoes, so this way I knew I had one friendly person. So just by a show of hands or even just shout out, tell me who you are. You entrepreneurs? From what Shuli was telling me, this is a really creative entrepreneurial crowd that's investing in startups and trying to build new and interesting technologies and companies. But is that that's a very broad, sweeping statement. So what are you guys doing? What are you all about? What?
Being an engineer not good enough?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's hard enough and good enough. But are you guys starting your own companies? Is that the general gist?
Yeah, I'm a software engineer, entrepreneur.
Okay. How many entrepreneurs are here? A lot. I certainly have. How many of you folks work for tech companies? Right, most. And of these companies, how many are less than 500 people? Okay, fair amount. Any reporters here, by the way? No, seriously, is there? Reporters? Are we on the record? No, which is fine. I don't have anything to hide. I'm all about transparent. I just like to know. Okay.
You're all being live streamed.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, Mom. So, one of the reasons I was excited to speak here is because we share a common attitude. Ghostery, but let me even back up. Although I'm an attorney, I'm a recovering lawyer. So I'm in the 12-step program. And the first step is to admit it. And then you can get better, of course. And so I'm actually not a practicing lawyer at Ghostery. What I do is, as their chief privacy officer, I have a dual role. The first is an outward-facing role to be the ambassador to the privacy community and to engage with thought leaders like yourselves and entrepreneurs and people who are changing the world to understand the issues that you're concerned about and also to share with you some of the issues I'm hearing from some of your peers and other thought leaders. And the second thing I do is an inward-facing function to make sure that we do it right, that we build software the right way with an ethical approach to it, which means incorporating and investing in these things called privacy by design and security by design. But show of hands, have anyone heard of those notions? You'll hear of it more and more. And that's what attracted me to the company, because Ghostery's mission statement is transparency for all. And that's where we have common ground in that we believe that if you can pull back the digital curtain and show people what's happening behind the scenes, then they can make an informed decision that's most appropriate for themselves. We don't take a position whether something is good or bad. Our position is reveal it and let people decide for themselves. So that's what attracted me to the company. Has anyone heard of Ghostery? I should even back up. Okay, so a few people. Just by way of background, Ghostery was founded in 2009. We're right up the street at 39th and 5th. And we have about 100 employees. Our big office is here in New York, and we have an onshore development center in Salt Lake City. And then a couple sales offices in London and Seattle, Chicago. But we were founded to be specifically as a software company that was going to build privacy products. It's kind of a unique beast. And no one had really done it. And the few people who had tried had not been successful to date. And look, it's really tough. You know, we have 110, 115 employees, and but we're privately held, we're profitable, and you know, but and we sell stuff. We're a for-profit company. And what we do with our products, we have a consumer product that's free. And I hope all of you will download it. It's a browser plugin. And I saw a thumbs up, thank you. And the sole function of this product is to reveal the invisible activity or the third parties who may be tracking you on any given website. And I'll show that to you in a moment. And again, we don't take a position whether this activity is nefarious or not. But what we do promote is that you should know about it, because this activity ultimately results in advertising dollars flowing to the websites that you visit, which funds the free internet model. Because I'm old enough to remember the early days, back in the 90s, when websites were just getting created, and every single website had a paywall, and it sucked. And it really inhibited it chilled the internet from getting traction. But anyway, we also, good music, but we also have a suite of products that we sell to companies. And those are unrelated to our free consumer tool. But what those products do, they're really twofold. Number one, we have a patented notice and consent technology or platform that we have developed so organizations can comply with different privacy laws around the world, like the cookie law in the EU, which requires you to give notice and get consent if you use cookies on your website. So, and there's more and more compliance obligations on companies all around the world, and we are building privacy products to help companies comply with those things. So it makes sense what we do? Okay. So I touched on this. Our products really help organizations comply with specific niche privacy laws. And I'm going to talk about them, as boring as law can be, and I'm sorry. It's going to become more and more important because of a big law coming like a freight train right at all of us out of the EU. Has anyone heard of the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation? Yeah, you'll hear more and more about it, and it's important that you at least know about it. So what we have seen, I've been at Ghostery for 4 years. The company is 7 years old. We've seen something really interesting, at least since I've been there, and that every year, the amount of invisible activity that I'm going to show you in the next slide that is occurring on any given website. And this deck will be available. You don't need to take pictures. I promise I'll send it to you. The amount of invisible tracking activity on any site that we go to on average is growing at 100% a year. A year. And that can be kind of startling. It takes people, it makes people take pause. And that's that statistic all the way on the right-hand side. Another interesting thing that we've observed is that the amount of growth within the digital advertising industry is growing at, 42%. Digital advertising is such big business now that from when it started its inception about, just say roughly the year 2000 to now, it started at 0, and last year generated $50 billion in the US alone and accounted for almost 1 million jobs. So it's big business. And when you pull the curtains back, that's what's going on in a website. That's what Ghostery reveals. And this is a snapshot, a screenshot of the invisible digital activity happening from CNN.com. This is their server right here. And all these parties on their site are brought on originally by companies that CNN is doing business with, which in turn bring on fourth parties, which bring on fifth parties, which bring on sixth parties, and whole constellations of subcontractors and sub-subcontractors and sub-sub-subcontractors. And what are they doing? Does anyone know? It's really hard to figure out. But what they're doing is collecting data. That's it. Everything else is smoke screens and mirrors. What they're doing is collecting data. And it's not specifically data about me individually, Todd that lives in New York City over on that street, but it's data that is generally speaking anonymous, someone who logged on, we dropped a cookie on them, and the next time we see that cookie, we're able to track that cookie, follow that cookie as it goes from site to site to site. So the next time they see that cookie, me, they know that I get served an online ad that might be of interest to me. So when I pop up on the internet on my laptop or my phone, they know that all of a sudden I get an advertisement where to buy shoes on the Upper West Side, which I just did. And that's cool if I'm in the market for shoes on the Upper West Side, but it can also be a little icky. But that's basically what all those companies are doing. Some portion of, they're doing something to figure out in order for me to get an advertisement where to buy shoes on the Upper West Side, in order to serve the right ad to the right person at the right moment. Yes?
Some of them even find out your address, even though you didn't provide it on the website. Like, I know I've gotten a lot of things through Facebook. Somehow they know my address, and I never provided it.
They can through a concept called data matching, offline data matching. Yeah, that can be true. But there's laws that are supposed to regulate that activity. But anyway, so I just want you guys to know, without judgment, that this is what's happening behind the curtains. And a lot of companies rely upon this as a major source of revenue. But if they don't do it right, there's real risk. If they do it right, it actually builds consumer trust and brand value. Here's another example of a company that has an actually pretty clean website. This is Target.com, and they're a client of ours. And this is pretty good. All nice and tidy. So I talked about the concept of online advertising or targeted advertising. Is anyone familiar with that? I just touched upon it. Said it's $50 billion a year in revenue last year, and you take my word for it. It's a really interesting business concept that evolved in parallel to the internet, where the advertising industry recognized about 20 years ago that the internet could be a medium for them to really be efficient and effective with their ads, right? Increase the eyeball and increase sales while decreasing costs. In the old days, the early days of the internet, it literally, online advertising was renting space on a digital billboard. And you would go to the New York Times and you would see an ad, where to buy shoes on the Upper West Side. Great if you lived on the Upper West Side. Not so great if you lived in LA. Who cares? Or Arkansas. Why you would live in Arkansas? I don't know. But, just bad joke. But anyway, so the internet came along and advertising industry said, wow, we can really improve our business and effectiveness, and our costs will go way down. So the concept of one-to-few marketing was born. And it was based on being able to know your customers. And the way you can get to know your customers was maybe not specifically that it's you or me, but by making inferences on them based upon where they go on the internet, all the different sites that they travel to in the internet. And that is predicated on this thing called cookies and other tracking technologies, which you guys may be using. But basically, all of this data collection, this messiness, is being done in order to serve you an online ad. And do you know how long it takes for them, once you show up on the internet, to recognize you as someone we've seen before and serve you a relevant ad? Any guesses? How long?
20 milliseconds.
Close. It's about 0.8 of a second on average, and it's getting faster. And it's because of this whole new industry that has evolved called programmatic trading. This is just a flow chart that I created showing how an online ad gets onto your screen, basically. And all of this flow, these red hops, happen in about 0.8 of a second. It used to be longer now, and it's getting quicker. You know what it's akin to? Remember in financial services, the industry a few years ago, where they had this thing called high-frequency trading, and the book The Big Short came out. Remember that? By Michael Lewis. And in financial services, some really smart guys figured out, if I can make my trade 1/1,000,000th of a second faster than the company next door, then I have an advantage. And I can make a whole lot of trades and beat my competition to a trade by 1/1,000,000th of a second or 1/10 of a second. But I can make 1,000,000 trades 1/10 of a second faster than them and make a whole lot of pennies. And this became this concept of high-frequency trading. So a lot of those folks have jumped over to online advertising, and now this thing called programmatic trading exists, where there's a race, an arms race, to buy and sell ads and serve them to you faster and faster and faster and faster. So now it takes less than a second to get an interest-based ad. So that's the scary part, but it's big business. And again, funds this free internet model. And my position, as well as Ghostery's, I've said this earlier, is as long as you make everyone aware of it, then they can decide whether they want to go to your website. Yes?
What is their justification if you once paid? If you pay, they should not have any reason to actually scan you, right? But that's not what's happening.
No, they could still do it if they want to. There's no prohibition against. I'll actually talk about that right now. So I gave you all the scary stuff. Now let me tell you the non-scary stuff. So there actually are laws governing this conduct, because it has been the wild, wild west up until a few years ago. Now, a few years ago, remember I said Ghostery was started in 2009? The reason Ghostery was started in 2009 was because the advertising industry came under intense political pressure. In a very non-legal term, from the year 2000 all the way up through 2008, 2009, the ick factor really was taken off. People were creeped out. What's all this online tracking? How come I logged on and I got served an ad where to buy shoes on the Upper West Side? How'd they know I was interested in shoes? That's creepy. I'm being followed. The reality is it really has been, generally speaking, anonymous. There are some bad actors, but generally speaking, but people were creeped out and they started complaining. And like anything else, laws follow business practice. Laws lag behind business. So what people discovered was there actually wasn't any series of laws governing this conduct. And that was of concern. So they started complaining to their congressmen and women, and the public outcry got so large that in 2008, 2009, Congress was about ready to pass a privacy law aimed specifically at the advertising industry. But then I know that there's a lot of smart people in this room. What happened in 2008 and 2009? Recession, too big to fail, Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns, right? The economy crashed. By the way, I did a privacy project at Bear Stearns, and then I did a privacy project at Lehman Brothers. My wife says I am the cause that the economy crashed, but I don't think there's a connection. So Congress was about ready to take action, but then the economy crashed. There was this collision of two independent forces. The advertising industry said, you know what, it is a bit ironic that we are in the communication business and we fail to communicate to our customers about our value proposition. But please, Congress, don't pass a privacy law on us right now that's going to make us incur costs, and we are about the only growth industry in this fragile economy. Please don't pass this law on us. This will have a chilling effect. Translated, we're going to have to lay people off, and a lot of them live in your districts, and they're taxpayers, right? That's what they were really saying. Congress got the message and said, okay, we hear you, but you're not off the hook. We're going to give you one bite at the apple to get your act together as an industry, and if you don't, we're going to revisit passing a privacy law that will really be very prescriptive. So the industry got itself together and formed this industry code of conduct called the Self-Regulatory Program for Online Behavioral Advertising. Has anyone heard of it? So a couple, most haven't. And basically what it says is this. It's a principle-based code of conduct that says, if you're engaged in this stuff, then you have to be transparent about it, open and honest, on your website or in your advertisement. And you have to give the consumer control over it. And you can't see it. This pointer is pointing at a little blue triangle, which is called ad choices. That's the advertising industry's trust symbol that shows up in every single digital ad. So you have to be transparent. You have to give the consumer choice. You have to say exactly, you have to disclose all this activity that's happening on your website. And if you don't, you will be held accountable, including an FTC action if necessary. So Ghostery was formed, and we built products to help companies be transparent about what they do. Yes?
The ad agencies are regulating themselves.
It's a self-governing code of conduct that's enforced by an independent accountability agent. It's the BBB, and they've brought 65 cases, approximately 65 enforcement cases, including they've also referred cases to the FTC for enforcement actions.
In what time period?
Since 2012.
So it's kind of like, please don't steal from the cookie jar kind of thing, and you're on your own.
No, look, Ghostery sits at the intersection of all of this, and we see all the players. We think there's probably about a 85 to 90% compliance rate. There's so much money at stake that if companies don't do it right, that they really are at risk. But anyway, so this is what we do. We create products for companies to be transparent and to give consumers choice. Because remember I said our mission statement is transparency for all. And we list, through our products, we're able to see through our website scanning solutions all the invisible parties, all the invisible tracking happening on a website, and we populate that in this notice. And if a consumer wants to say, don't track me, they can turn it off through a little toggle switch. Now here's an interesting question. Show of hands. What percentage of people do you think actually say, don't track me? 20%. I've heard 10%, 20%? I heard 2, so anywhere from 2 to 20%.
Some sites say that if you don't allow the cookie, then you cannot go at all to the website.
Exactly.
Right, but those are not specifically tracking cookies. Those can be essential cookies that recognize what language you want the website to be in. So there's different types of cookies too. The essential cookies are what block the website from loading, not tracking cookies for advertising. So actually what we have seen is that less than 1% of people opt out. Less than 1%. It's actually significantly less than 1%. It's something close to 0.004% of people opt out. And that's consistent year over year within a small amount. But of the people who opt out, another, just shout out, what do you think the percentages of people who say, I opt out of everything versus individual companies? It's actually the majority of people who opt out are opting out of specific companies, not all of them. And that really surprised me. That really surprised me. And and a lot of policymakers were really surprised. I talked to folks at the FTC and the FCC, I know I'm short on time, and policymakers and regulators in the EU all the time. And they want to know these statistics. And what we've discovered is that people want to be informed. They want you to be transparent. They want to trust the website they're doing business with. So they can make a decision whether they want to do business with you and give you their information, their personal data. And so long as you are open and honest about it, that builds that relationship. Then in the vast majority of cases, I was really shocked to learn that they said, okay, I get it. But I don't want this particular company to track me. So it's interesting. So it's all about being informed. Yes?
Should it be different in the EU where they have the consent form?
Say that again?
In the EU, when you have that big kind of cookie consent, do you see a different percentage?
Yeah, so the question is, in the EU, there's a different family of laws. There's what's called the cookie law. No, it's actually the same. It's very, very close to the same. People just want to know. And our products also do the same thing. Give notice and consent. Make transparency for all in the mobile context. So this is our business. We have built a business on helping companies be transparent. That's our business. You guys are doing other innovative, really cool things. And it's important to think about trust by building trust relationships with your customers through transparency, because there are actually laws and programs that compel you to be transparent. I talked about this self-regulatory program. But there's also this big old law coming like a freight train from Europe called the General Data Protection Regulation, the GDPR. It's going to change everything, guys. It's going to change everything. It's going to make transparency a part of this law. And the law will apply to not just European companies, but any website or app that sells products or services to an EU citizen. That means everybody. Everybody. And the highlight of this law that isn't taking effect for a mere 17,000 hours from now is that as a company, you have to honor privacy as a fundamental human right. And I know I'm way over time, but this is really important. For the first time, we're seeing a privacy law with teeth that says an individual's privacy is sacred. It's a fundamental human right, and we've codified it into legislation. That means if you don't treat someone's privacy according to this standard, you could get into trouble. And what the GDPR requires is that technology companies, app developers, that they actually incorporate into the product development lifecycle this thing called privacy by design, security by design. And those are just lawyer phrases that mean when you're thinking about building your product, think about the impact, the privacy impact and security impact to the user. Don't necessarily default to allowing this. It's not necessarily bad, but think about it. So your websites don't, or your apps don't end up being, apps gone wild. Think about what the impact is of your data practices upon your consumer or upon your customer. And if you do that, as well as security by design, then you're 80% there in compliance with the law. And oh, by the way, you build trust. And what we found at Ghostery is that you sell more stuff. So that's an ethical way of doing business that we've embraced, and knock on wood, so far it's proven okay. So that's who we are, that's who we do, or what we do, and this is why I'm with the company, because I believe passionately in our mission statement, and I'm so thrilled because it is so close to what you guys believe in, and thank you very much for having me.
For the video, but I did want to open it up for some Q&A. I'll just want to say a couple of points that I found very interesting, which is I think that this was a really good sort of overview of how the advertising, targeted advertising works, how it's built into the business model that we're all using, that we can't just pick and choose how we want privacy to work, right? Like, we're getting free services, they need to make money, so they figured out how to track us. There's probably ways to tweak that business model to make it better, but I also think that there are ways that we as individuals, as members of the Internet Society, or just people that are very interested in privacy, can start to think about a different business model altogether that will allow everyone to make money, but privacy is a right, and sometimes these are at loggerheads with each other, and I think that it's really important that we have awareness around this issue. So we can take a few questions, and then we'll wrap it up if anyone has any questions for me.
And before any questions, I think your point is so salient and couldn't agree more. And let me just build upon that with this one comment and observation that VC funding and private equity is actually recognizing that a ethical-based approach to technology startups and privacy and security is a value proposition, and there is money that is starting to flood in following companies that are focused on privacy-centric business models as a value proposition. For example, Silent Phone. Have you guys heard about Silent Phone?
Yeah.
Okay, so last week they just announced $50 million of new funding for their next generation of privacy-centric and security-centric phone. That's real money. Any questions?
So in the end, what's the point of company analyzing the user after they pay?
Repeat the question, please.
I didn't understand the question.
I thought that as long as the site is free, if they do the analytics, well, that's that. But once the user actually pays, then what's their justification for actually it's continuing analytics?
Okay, so I think what you're asking is a website double dipping in collecting user data if you have a paid account with them? That's something you need to decide. I can't, cast judgment on that, yes or no. But like Shuli was alluding to, the data exchange model is what exists as our engagement model with the internet. If you choose not to do business with them, or if you choose to block all the tracking or the activity, that you also have the tools to do that.
Is there any other recourse, to the business?
Well,
what we can demand them?
Well, first of all, you don't have to do business with them.
I mean, other than that, what if we just don't want them to track?
So control the activity. Ghostery has free tools that allows you to do that. There's AdBlock Plus. There's a lot of tracking tools that give consumer
So in
power.
general rules, the companies are unwilling to end the analytics. Is that what you say?
There are other things you can do.
Oh, I'm
which-
doing plenty. Just
but I think it's a good point. I don't know if I'm like jumping in here.
No, please.
Which I am.
Let's have a conversation.
But I think you can use things like VPNs, which I'm sure a lot of us know about, but VPNs use a different IP address so that it's harder to track you. Also, all your data is encrypted. And so just in that sense, it's safer, but it kind of throws off the smell a little bit.
I have a VPN
I use
app on
VPNs,
my phone.
I had a very interesting experience on Sunday. I went to Pret a Manger, and we had the coding meetup. And so I went onto my computer, and I happened to use a VPN. And so it always says, if you want to block activity, blah, blah, blah. So I go plug in, and that's actually how I even get onto Wi-Fi where I go. Anyway, so there, I couldn't use my Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
I was blocked.
Yeah. They've kind of caught on to the bigger VPN companies and block certain IP addresses. So people used to use it to like get around country restrictions for streaming Netflix or whatever.
Right.
And the company I use, which I highly recommend actually, is called Private Internet Access, and they are blocked. I mean, Netflix caught on to all these things. So I can't see what's available in Mexico.
And that's fine. Netflix is a for-profit company. That's their content that they're streaming. So, but
I happen to even subscribe to Netflix, so it had nothing to do with
No, I know. I
Netflix.
was
Right.
thinking it.
Yeah.
No, right. That's a good
And-
point because
I
they
was
don't
in a
want you to
public
use
Wi-Fi
the VPN.
that I just happened not to want people to see my stuff.
Good.
And I was blocked as a result in this public Wi-Fi area. So,
Jess,
it
and
was
then
interesting.
I
Never
have a really
happened to me.
quick follow-up on that. How do you know these VPN companies? Like, how do you know you can trust them? I know there's some free ones, which is obviously a little suspect.
Sure. Well, they make their money
Right.
on, if you buy products from them and they make their money on that service. So if it's not working, they're out of business.
Right.
Or if they're not straight up, they're out of business.
No, but I think she said like you are on a VPN, but still then your information is not collected. It's still can
Oh,
be
how do you
still
know
collected
that
by
one?
the VPN company.
Yeah.
And
right.
there's no
It's
way to
a
know.
repository for
Then
yeah.
you
Right.
still trust one or the other.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Just you can keep changing it so data retention is small.
Yes, but
Yes.
still
This
they
is
have
not a
to put-
question per se, but
If you use
since you
the
brought up
VPN,
AdBlock Plus,
What?
I just want to get a survey of the audience, how many people use AdBlock as software when browsing?
Yeah, so a good percentage. That's a really good point. And please know that the ad blocking software is ad blocking is a business model. It's not a technology. People can use our free consumer plugin to block ads, block tracking, but that's not our business model. AdBlock Plus actually says to publishers, they said, if you want, our software is blocking everything, but if you want your ads to appear, then pay us money.
Yeah.
So it's a shakedown. It is. It's a shakedown, and they're being sued by, by.
Users also, they have options that
But consumers like it because you know what? It doesn't interfere. They're blocking the ads. But a really interesting survey on why people use ad blockers. What are your thoughts on why ad blockers are so popular? There's now a couple 100 million users of ad blockers.
Anonymous yet, period.
Is because not because of the ads, but because of the experience. Because the default screen now is a mobile device, and the advertising the digital marketing architecture is built not for mobile but for online. So when you get an ad on your phone, it is messy and it interferes with content and you can't X out of it, and people get really frustrated. So that's why they're blocking ads. Plus, also the ads are using up your data plans.
So the segue to what you're saying, because I think it brings up a really good point, is that so many more people are using mobile stuff now, that how do we actually address privacy from a device which can be identified so directly as a phone? That's the first part of one of my concerns. And the second part is, I feel like we're playing catch up, and they're already so far in advance of us because, even though we are trying to protect privacy, and that's the first bulwark to sort of set up, with machine learning and with the gig economy and with Mechanical Turk and things like this, where people are actually, every behavior that's being tracked and every input they put into a system is being used to train some machine learning system, they're now giving free work products to these companies that are completely taking advantage of them. So, I'm worried that that's the next evolution of where this is going, and we just don't have, we're not even close to tapping into protecting any of these things.
I don't have a crystal ball. I truly don't, and you may well be right, I don't know. But what I do know is the power of innovation is not abstract, it's real. And folks like you think of amazing ideas and then build it and come to market, and that's the next unicorn. So, go for it. And again, I get back to what drew me to Ghostery, which is, all this stuff may be happening and I can't, the horse has already left the barn, but what I believe deeply in it is informing people and communicating about it and let them decide if they want to do business with that company.
You mentioned that Ghostery is free, but is it open source? And if so, does it phone home?
The consumer plugin is free. It is not open source. We collect data on an opt-in basis, not on the individual, but on what trackers they encounter. And from that, then we build our commercial products.
So how different is Ghostery from AdBlock?
Well, because again, AdBlock Plus is a business model, and it is built on blocking all ads unless a publisher pays them to let their ads in, which is a legal issue, and that is not what we're about. You can use Ghostery and not opt in to being in a panel to allow us to have data not about you, but about the trackers that are following you. You could use it without any loss of functionality. But we're a for-profit company, and we say in our privacy statement that I wrote that, please, we're a for-profit company. If you opt in, we will use information not about you. We don't know who you are. We don't want to know who you are. Please don't tell us. But we're going to gather information about the trackers who are following you and package that into commercial product to sell to companies so we can continue giving you something free.
But can't you infer the user from knowing that information?
Look, you can, with enough information and data elements, you can infer anything, but we don't know it's Kevin. All we collect is, very nominal information after you opt in. And there are specific data elements that we articulate, but never name, email address. We stay as far away from personal data in the Euro sense as we can get.
let's take one last question.
Yeah, so this is more of a branding, more of a business question, and more on what Jess has said. How do you, since pretty much all technology is screened from people who don't know technology with a GUI, with a user interface. And once you have that, once you put something in between a person and code, you don't know what's going on in the code. How do you, as a brand, as a business, make people trust you that you are giving them the information that is right? Does that make sense as a question?
I think so. My first response is I can't make someone trust me. All I can do is tell them what our business practices are and our approach to data management, data collection and use, and be really open and honest about it. And then say, if you want to do business with us, let's rock on. And if you don't, that's totally cool. And that approach has served us really well over 7 years. And we've had more than 50 million downloads, and our consumer tools being downloaded 30,000 times a day. And within the compliance world, our products are used by tier 1 brands. We have about a 75% market share in this very small market. We're a small company.
Okay. Any last question?
I just one last thing. Do you think in the future there's going to be like a digital Interpol, or like people who can actually police this stuff and have the ability, like the technological know-how to?
Well, I think, me personally, I think that that's the gray area that we're in, that we're in this sort of Wild West phase right now, where laws haven't caught, we have laws protecting us in the physical world, but they haven't translated into the digital sphere. Exactly. And I think unless we as people start to push and say we actually want to be protected, only then I think will regulation catch up. We know that big companies won't do it. Google won't advocate for that, or I'm not going to pick on Google in particular, but it won't change just from this business model. So I don't know if you want to address that.
That's a fantastic question, and I encourage you all just to be cognizant about this big old law I mentioned, the GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, coming out of the EU, because it will apply basically to, except the local florist on the corner, pretty much everyone, because the whole goal of the law is to give the individual, to give her back control over her personal data. And there's a whole new series of individual rights given to the person. And the flip side, there's a whole new set of obligations on companies that collect personal data. And boy, I pity the chief privacy officer who allows her company or his company to violate this law, because penalties can be up to 4% of your annual gross revenue. And if it's really bad, executives can even have criminal indictments brought against them. It's already passed. It's, we're in the ramp up. How will that affect Ghostery?
Things in the States, how would you do it in Europe?
How will it affect Ghostery? Well, we're betting the farm on transparency as a good business model, on an ethical approach to privacy and security as being a good idea. We're betting the farm. And we think that will serve us well under the new law, because the new law will require companies to be transparent and to give the individual more control over her personal data. And we think that's a good thing.
Joey, do you have a question?
I just have a comment from Ed1, who is watching from the Cameroon in Africa.
Cool.
Wow.
Hi,
And
Ed.
he just says that it was a very useful presentation and he very much liked it, and he just wanted to give you a compliment.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I still think it might have been my mother in Fort Lauderdale, but I'll take it. Yes.
All right, so we're gonna wrap it up, but don't go anywhere. We have a very exciting raffle for this product that one of you is gonna win. Quick thank you to Todd.
No, thank you. Guys, I learned so much and great questions. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. This is really fantastic.
Thanks, yeah.